Hey guys, it is NCS Fan 001 here for another one of those now slightly less than weekly trophy and achievement list updates. Today's date is Tuesday, October the 14th of 2025. So we're now halfway through the month of October, and I legitimately don't even know how many days this now covers because I think it's been like 3 weeks since the last one of these updates at this point. Or has it been 2 weeks? It's either been 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I think it's been 2 weeks because no, it has been 3 weeks because let's see, I posted the one right before I left for Japan, then didn't do one that week, then didn't do one the week after because I had just gotten back, and then so now, yeah, because we went 2 weeks without one, so this is 3 weeks basically of trophy and achievement progress, which is obviously fairly minimal because I was out of the country for a large portion of it. I went to Japan, for those of you who don't know, and it was an absolutely incredible trip. Can't wait to start uploading some vlogs of that. But it was a lot of fun. Absolutely, definitely planning on going back. Me and Lizard Guy are kind of already planning a trip, or at least getting into the early planning phases of a trip for once he gets out of the military, is like a celebration of that. So yeah, super excited to eventually go back. It was a great time. And yeah, now we can come back and start talking about trophies and achievements. So in terms of trophy progress, it was made in one game, which was the North American version, the North American PS5 version, of Word Web by Palgi. So for those who don't know, I do the Palgi games every now and then, usually about every like 50, 75 to 100 platinums. And this is no exception. It's been a very long time since I've done one. But I've done now both versions of this game. I did the first one back in November, and I did the other version now in October. Did I just say November? I think I just meant September. I'm just exhausted. I'm mostly caught up on sleep, but still was a tiring day today, so yeah. Anyways, this Platinum Trophy is very quick and easy. If you follow a guide, you can do it in like half an hour. So in terms of the actual trophies, you have to solve the very first puzzle and the very last puzzle, as well as 50 total puzzles, so you can solve the very first puzzle, the very last one, and 48 more in between. Then you have to use Fix to correct a mistake, and use it to correct 5 mistakes. You can actually knock both of these out at the exact same time. Just make 5 mistakes on the first puzzle in the game, and just fix them all at once, and you'll get both those trophies right then and there. Solving a puzzle without a mistake and in less than 3 minutes are both extremely easy with a guide, as you can solve these puzzles in well under a minute, as long as you're following a guide. The way this game works is you put letters into this giant, like, grid form, and they, I guess, form different 5-letter words or 4-letter words as well, but with it, like, you have to place the letters in places where it just looks really, really weird. This is definitely one of those ones where it'd be a lot harder to figure out what you were having to do for a puzzle, if that makes any sense. Like, it's definitely one of the more complicated Palgi games in terms of what you actually have to do for the puzzle. But if you follow a guide, of course, it's not going to be that much of a problem. So then you have to spend at least a minute considering a solution, which is a very typical trophy for these games. So just spend a minute on any puzzle screen and get this one. For this particular one, if you want to get a speed run for the game, I would suggest doing this one first. Then you have your typical inappropriate word trophy, which is present in almost every Palgi game, so just spell an inappropriate 4 or 5-letter word. You can think of that as you will. Take whichever word you think is most creative for that. Then you have to cycle through all of the words on the list, which just requires you to hit either L1 or R1 a bunch of times to cycle through all the words on a single puzzle. And then you have to correctly place a bunch of specific words, and these are found in specific puzzles. Now, if you were to do all 120 puzzles in the game, you would get all of these naturally just by beating it. But you only need to do, again, 50 of the puzzles, including the first and last one. So I'd recommend following a guide as to exactly where these words need to be placed. And that way you can save yourself a lot of time. I followed the guide from Knof, I think is the name of it. Knoef, I think is the name of their website. And they usually do trophy guides for easier games such as this. So I followed their guide and it was perfect for this. I don't know if there are other guides out there. I don't think PowerPix actually has one for this particular game. But yeah, so that's another Palgi game done. And if we look at the entirety of Palgi, I've done 2 versions of the original word search. Then I've done 3 versions. This was back when I did more EU versions of games, or actually did EU versions of the game in general. So Word Sudoku did 3 of those, did 3 of one word, 2 of mix-ups, 2 of crossovers, 2 of word wheel. Have not done Word Sweeper yet. That's the one that's sort of like Minesweeper, I think. I don't think it's really hard. I've just never felt like playing it. Then there's 50 Words, which was one of the slightly more annoying Palga games, or at least more difficult ones, just because I believe it was often like timed or you just couldn't really tell where all the words were on the guides. Did that one. Tic Tac Letters, did 2 versions of that, 2 versions of Word Maze, 2 versions of Just a Phrase, 2 versions of Crypto. I have not done Alpha Set yet, which is surprising. I wonder what this one's like. So it looks like it's just like crossword puzzles, actually. I'm actually very surprised I haven't done this one yet. And it looks like it's literally just complete specific words and then a few typical miscellaneous trophies, so... Oh, wow, does this one actually not have the bad word trophy? I don't think it does. That's surprising. It might be one of the only it's one of the only ones that doesn't. Oh, someone actually wrote a guide for it. Okay, cool. So if I ever want to go do that one, it would be very easy. Roundout, for some reason, only has 3 total versions, and I did the North American version of it. Then Ladders, that's the first one that was on PS5, did 2 versions of that, 2 versions of Gaps, 2 versions of Flowers, 2 versions of Word Breaker, 60 Words, I haven't gotten around to that one yet because, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of 50. And then 2 versions of Letterbox and 2 versions of WordWeb. Given that WordWeb seems to have been the last one they released back in like 2023, presumably we're not getting any more games in this series. So if you really wanted to, you could go out there and probably 100% the entire series if you really wanted to, though I don't know why you would. But I guess it's something you can do if you like really want to for some reason. So going to my profile, we are now level 903, 63%, 30,852 total trophies, 891 platinums, 5,953 golds, 8,322 silvers, 15,686 bronzes. So that is it for actual trophy progress this week, but in terms of trophy games to work on, really got to get back onto that Death Stranding grind at some point because I'm getting definitely closer to being done. Just been kind of lazy about it. But I do have other games that I'm kind of playing on PS5 right now. Like I kind of want to do a Clemson rebuild, or at least try to in College Football 26. And then I want to start the other version of Modern Warfare 2 because it's the only one that didn't auto-pop, but you can partially auto-pop it, including the Veteran Trophy, just by beating the final mission, which is fantastic because that game on Veteran was really not fun. Ghost of Tsushima, I've got it re-downloaded, reinstalled because I've been playing through it again because, I mean, just got back from Japan and it's been so much fun to play this, and I actually took a samurai lesson over there, which was pretty awesome. I also downloaded the Goat Simulator 3 because that's one of the free games of the month. I've got Alan Wake 2 in the library. Supposedly we're also getting Silent Hill 2 remake or remaster, whatever it was called, so I will definitely play that at some point. Possibly sooner rather than later, even though there are some retro games I do want to play for Spooky Month. I also have House of the Dead remake. I actually just picked that one up. I know that's a fairly easy platinum, so maybe we'd try that out on stream or something. So now we can go over to Retro Achievements. And as you can see here, not a ton of major progress, but I did complete a game in the last few weeks. So Rocket Power, I had played that last when I was killing time after finishing Indiana Jones, Lego Indiana Jones. So Scooby-Doo, Night of 100 Frights. This is my 6th total mastery, and it is by far my least favorite one that I have done so far. This game was not a good time overall. Let me rephrase that. It was a fun time outside of the boss fights. And that's not so much because the boss fights are super difficult, except maybe the final one is kind of tough, just as a fight in general, but it's mostly because of the miscellaneous achievements, which we'll get to those here in just a second. So a vast majority of the achievements in this game are tied to getting the different inventions, as well as just simply completing the game. So these first 5 achievements, you have to get the shovel, the springs, which are 2 of the first inventions you'll get, the slippers and lampshade. The other list, I think, says this one might be missable, but I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not. I guess maybe it could be if you got the Black Knight's armor first. The helmet is the way that you attack, because remember, this game is a Metroidvania of all things, so that means that you go in, and you have to like thoroughly explore each area of the game to try to find new items to go back to old areas and continue through them. So yeah, the shovel allows you to dig up flowers, which usually just gives you extra health. The springs allow you to double jump. The slippers and lampshade are technically supposed to be a disguise, but they really don't do anything. The helmet is your main form of attack, at least until you get the slam ability. And the anti-stick galoshes allow you to walk on tar surfaces. So here we have the first of the 4 actually pretty brutal achievements in this game, or at least by far the worst 4 achievements. And that first one is for defeating the Black Knight Ghost, which is the first of 4 bosses in the game, without taking any damage, which that is honestly pretty reasonable overall, because it's not really... None of the boss fights, except for the final one, are really any problem to do without taking damage. It's just... Well, I say that. I don't know if I would actually say that about the... You know what? Actually, let me rephrase that. Most of these fights are easy to get through overall because you have 5 health, and the only punishment for dying in this game is you go back to the start of the area that you're in, which the areas are usually fairly small, so it's not that much of a punishment. The problem with this achievement is that you're only allowed to charge 4 times, and you need to charge 4 times to hit 4 buttons when the Black Knight is walking atop them. Because like he's walking on a platform, you have to hit the button in front of him as he walks behind it, because that'll shock him, and you have to hit each of the 4 buttons once. But the game is super, super finicky about this. Like, sometimes he just won't walk toward one of the switches that you need to hit him with. And even if he does walk toward it, sometimes it just won't count, even if he's completely under it. But then sometimes it will count when he's standing a little ways away from it. So, good old classic jankiness, of course. Then the Super Smash is... And then all of the boss fight trophies are technically missable simply because you can't refight the bosses or anything like that. There's no chapter select. It's an open world game. So do keep that in mind. You might want to make an extra manual save before each of the 4 boss fights. So this one I didn't think was going to be as bad as it was, but it took me quite a while to get through. Like, this one took me... These times are also completely wrong, by the way. Just thought I'd bring that up real quick. I'm not playing at midnight. So it looks like this one probably took like well over 20 minutes to get, so... Then we get to the Super Smash, which is basically the ground pound, and there's also an enhanced version of it that you get a little bit later on, so that's just basically your ground pound ability. The Black Knight armor upgrade is something that you can easily play through the game without collecting, because that's how it was for me as a kid. I never got it when I was a kid playing through this game. It's just like an improved cover system, or hiding system, I guess you could say, but it still doesn't really do anything. The plungers allow you to walk up sharp, like sloped surfaces, or slippery surfaces. The umbrella is one of the most helpful items. It allows you to hover, which is very, very helpful. So then you have the Green Ghost. I would say that the Green Ghost is by far the easiest of the 4... Well, yeah, I'd say he's definitely the easiest of the 4 boss fights, and definitely has the easiest of the miscellaneous achievements. So, like, this particular fight took probably only about 10 to 15 minutes to get it, and it's mostly because this fight is heavily RNG for its requirements. So getting through it without taking damage really is not that hard, because he only has a couple of attacks, and he's the only of the bosses that doesn't spawn in any sort of ads alongside him, just also some like poisonous plants, but they're easy to avoid. But you can only do the Super Smash ground pound 3 times. The problem with that is that in this fight, you're going to have Daphne running around behind a bunch of coffins, and she'll open up a random one every few seconds, and you have to then ground pound a button in front of the coffin when the Green Ghost stops on top of it. Now, you never know if she's actually going to stop at the correct one and open the correct one, or if the ghost is just going to hover over it and go to a different one. And then even if she does open the correct ones at the correct times, the 2 on the outside, you can get screwed over because of the plants breathing the acid breath or whatever it is at the wrong time. But all in all, he's definitely the easiest of the 4 boss fights, and the easiest in terms of the achievements for them. The gum invention allows you to basically stick enemies in place and then jump on top of them like a springboard. The soap bubble is very similar. It allows you to just walk on top of the enemies when you bubble them. Captain Redbeard. This fight was a gigantic pain in the ass, and it is the only achievement that I didn't manage to get live on stream, but I did record myself getting it and actually showed that bit of video during one of the live streams. I have a lot of issues with this achievement. So the good thing about it is that technically you don't have to restart the whole boss fight if you take damage there. What you can do is, basically in this fight, he will summon a wave of ghosts, then he will summon a ghost of Captain Moody, which is the weird one in like the yellow coat, and then he'll throw his sword, and you have to trick him into throwing his sword at a rope that leads to like a bucket or something that's above him, or a barrel, and you have to hit all 4 of them in order to drop it on him. And then the number of ghosts and the number of Captain Moody ghosts both increase on each wave. So when you get to wave 4, so the final phase of the fight, you have to get through 4 waves of the white ghosts, which is really, really easy to do without taking damage once you get their pattern down. It's super easy. But then you have to destroy 12 of the ghosts of Captain Moody in a row without being damaged by anything. Now, part of the problem is that you can only get 4 of them spawning at a time, and 4 sort of per attempt at this final phase. And if you either take damage or fail in any way, then you're going to have to go back through the white ghost phase and then start hitting them again. And you can only get 4 at a time, so you have to do at least 3 total waves of this. Sometimes you'll have to break into a 4th one, depending on how your first wave was with where you got hurt or not. So a big part of the issue with this achievement is that the hitboxes on this guy are insanely janky. And like sometimes you'll very clearly hit one of them, but it will not count. But sometimes you'll like lock onto him from quite a ways away and still hit him. But then a big part of the problem with that is that even if you manage to hit him, half the time one of the other ghosts will manage to hit you while you're vulnerable and in the air. And it's just completely random as to whether or not the game decides to actually let you get any of that. So I tried this for like an hour, hour and a half on stream and just failed the entire time because it was such BS-ery. Definitely one of the worst. It seems to be considered the worst achievement in this list, partially because it's such a pointless one, because it requires you to actively not play the boss fight, pretty much, which is really kind of dumb. And then there are some strategies on there, on like the forums here, that give you certain ideas for what you can do, but I can never get either of them to work perfectly. Like one said to lead yourself on a specific ghost at the start of each wave, and like hit that first ghost first, and then train them around and split them up. Whereas the other guy basically said something along the lines of how you're supposed to actually do your ground pound and drop on him and then immediately move. I couldn't get any one specific strategy to work. It just came down very heavily to luck of the game just not screwing you. And even after like an hour, hour and a half of that, I still took like another hour the next day to get it. So this one took by far the longest out of all of them, I'm pretty sure. Well, yeah, I think this one definitely did take the longest out of all 4 of them, and it was definitely the overall most difficult and the most pointless. Then you get this trophy for beating the game. And this trophy is for the final boss fight. Now, the good thing is that this one is not really... This one's less complicated because all you have to do is beat the boss fight without taking any damage. But that is way easier said than done because, once again, the boss fight has a lot of broken issues to it. During this fight, you basically have to go in and you'll have to kill several waves of the Space Kooks and the Funland robots. The Space Kooks are pretty easy to kill because you can just ground pound their heads once and they die. But the Funland robots, you can't ground pound most of the time. Occasionally it'll let you, but most of the time you'll just phase through them and take damage. But the Funland robots, you have to hit them twice, and in a different way. You have to knock them down first with the helmet and then body slam them or ground pound them. So they take a lot more time to kill, and then they eventually respawn as well if you're too slow. So you have to deal with multiple of them, and then 2 electric barriers shut off, and it allows you to headbutt 2 red buttons. You have to do this cycle 3 times through 3 different waves of these enemies, in which there are increasing numbers of them. By the final wave, of course, it's 3 of each type of enemy, so it's actually very, very difficult. But once you're able to sort of get that down, you then come to the second phase of the fight, where you actually have to fight the boss. So during that phase, he has a few different attacks, and he will teleport around the screen. He will sometimes teleport directly under you and make you take damage, which was something that happened way too frustratingly often. He also has 2 infinitely respawning Funland robots that follow you around, but since it's only 2 of them, you can kind of just use the gum on them to stop them from moving. And then sometimes with the Mastermind, you have to ground pound his head and then hit him into the electric. But sometimes he just won't it won't respond correctly. Sometimes your ground pound will phase through him or the other enemies. Sometimes he'll somehow do damage to you while he's either stunned or while you're doing your ground pound on him. And sometimes the electric just will not activate in time before he teleports away. And that actually happened several times as well. So basically everything that could go wrong consistently throughout this fight did, and it was an absolutely miserable time. So I crashed out a lot on this game, especially on these last two boss fights, so I would not recommend doing this version of the game. The achievement list for the GameCube version is almost exactly the same, but easier. Basically, with this one, you just have to get every Scooby Snack and every monster token in the game, so 100% the game. And then I think there's maybe like one miscellaneous achievement in here. No, they're actually... Okay, there's this. There's one for a cheat code, which I don't know anything about doing that one. But everything else in this list is literally just 100% the game. And that's literally all you have to do, plus whatever that is. So the other version's definitely easier. So keep that in mind. If you want to do this game, do the GameCube version because it's literally just 100% completion with no extra stuff to do. And then I'm actually curious about this one. So this must be some kind of... Oh, was this like on the PlayStation 1? Like a demo or something? Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah, it sure was. Okay, so that would actually be rather interesting to take a look at if they ever get a list made for it. They've been making a lot of Wii lists. They seem to be focusing heavily on that right now. So then you have to find all 26 warp gates. There are 25 throughout most of the open world, plus one in the monster gallery. Then you have to increase your gum and soap capacity. For both of these, I found almost all of the upgrades naturally, but I missed like one of the soap bubble upgrades somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it was, but that was the only thing I missed, so just had to go find that and just had to look up a guide for exactly where they were. And then you have to 100% each level of the game or each area of the game. Each area is usually broken down into anywhere from 2 to 4 like individual segments. So with all of those, you just have to find all the Scooby Snacks and all the monster tokens. Now there are thousands of Scooby Snacks in the game. There are several thousand of them and about 20-ish monster tokens. Most of this stuff, like 95% of this stuff, is right on the main path or very easy to see and collect. But there's usually always going to be a few snacks that are pretty well hidden, and the monster tokens are usually pretty well hidden. It might require you to solve extra puzzles or something like that. Then there are a few places where the snacks are just in really, really dickish spots. Like there's a box of one behind a pillar over like a death pit in one area in like the basement of the mansion, which was really, really jerkish, but I sort of figured out where it might be. And then alongside that, you sometimes have to like hit a switch in one area, then go back in the level a little ways to see what it activated to get another snack. You know, stuff like that. There's also a few that are RNG based on some coffins when you're out in the graveyard area. Basically, there's like 4 buttons you can ground pound, and they have a chance of spawning Scooby Snacks in them, and you have to get all 4 of them to work, which just takes time and random chance. Now, overall, though, it's still not that bad. Like I said, 95% of them are pretty easy to find as long as you can tolerate the controls and stuff that can be a little bit janky, and the camera isn't really the best either. But for the most part, it's not anything major aside from those miscellaneous achievements, which is why I definitely suggest doing the GameCube version instead. There's also this miscellaneous achievement, which I think was from like ground pounding through a grate somewhere. And that just like took me to it, or through like a hole in the floor, and that's how I got to it. So yeah, overall fun game outside of those miscellaneous achievements, just completely kind of ruining the experience for me. So let's go ahead back to my profile. With that is 1,903 points, or 2,761 retro points, of which I think I got a fair bit of additional retro points thanks to this particular game, because it's one of the rare ones I've done so far. Ranked now in the top 40,000 out of 113,000, so top 34%, which is pretty awesome. 6 total mastery badges unlocked on 6 different games played where I actually went for achievements. I know I have a few games in here that technically have achievements, but I didn't necessarily mean to start them. It was just because of that one really, really weird one in Barnyard that I still can't believe existed. But now that they're starting to do a lot more Wii games, I can definitely see myself playing quite a few Wii games on here in the future. And Scooby-Doo took just under 16 hours, and most of that was on stream. About an hour of that wasn't, so it took just under 16 hours. If you were better at the boss fights, you could do this in under 15 hours, I would think, but that you have to be a lot better at the boss fights, and you also have to have better luck with them than I did. So that is going to be it for this update. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, made it all the way to the end, consider leaving a like and subscribing, ringing that bell if you haven't done so already, hype up the video, whatever that does. Plans for the upcoming week are maybe, like I said, to work on some more of Death Stranding if I get the chance. I got those other couple of games I want to play. Might end up streaming some stuff on PS5 just so I don't crash out on another retro game. Or I could just pick a really, easy retro game potentially if I wanted. In terms of that, I suspect that Call of Duty 3's list isn't anything insane. It's a pretty common one. Still got to play this monstrosity at some point. That's going to be an interesting time, isn't it? Jimmy, nah, that one's got some annoying parts to it, even though it's a super short game. Could always play a Lego game. That could be fun, even though this is one of the slightly harder ones on here. Could start on, a Mario Party game, because I kind of want to do Mario Party 4, or even Mario Party 6 or 7, even though they have just an insane number of achievements. I don't know about any of those other games right now. Maybe one of these Nicktoons games. Nintendogs is a massive grind, and I don't have a way to stream DS stuff. Pikmin would probably be fun, because I don't think this one has anything too insane with it. So you have to get the different types of Pikmin, recover the different ship parts. Oh, okay, hang on. There are probably a few in here that are kind of difficult. I know how to defeat Gulix, but collect all ship parts in the Forest of Hope before unlocking the blue Pikmin. So that's going to require you to do some speedrunny stuff that I don't necessarily know how to do. That might be the only one that's like that, though. Get the normal ending, so you're going to have to beat the game 3 times or use... Well, no, you can probably save, at the right place, and you're going to have to do the game at least twice anyway. So that's not really that big a deal. You can speedrun through the bad ending anyway once you get through day 1. That's the best ending. Ooh, best ending in 12 days or less. I can do that. I have done that a number of times on the Switch version of the game, but I don't know how well that would go on this version. And I've heard that these are actually pretty difficult requirements down here, so we'll have to see about that. That might be a little too stressful for right now. Oh, they added Rugrats Royal Ransom. I forgot about that. Shrek 2, I suspect that one's probably fairly challenging. That would be more fun to do in co-op if possible. Could always try to speedrun the GameCube version of this game where there's nothing difficult about it. It's just beating it. Revenge of the Flying Dutchman could be a fun one. I don't even know how to get, the hack versions of games like that or anything like that. And there's still many more that need achievements, but like I said, they're starting to do a lot more of Wii games and stuff, so definitely will want to be looking into that at some point. I'm sure Galaxy 1 and 2 will get them. Galaxy 1 might not be that bad, but I'm sure they can find ways to make it terrible. So yeah, I don't know exactly what I'm going to go for next on Retro Achievements, but I do know that I'm working on the LEGO Star Wars video, and that it's probably 60% of the way done at this point. It's coming by pretty quickly, so if it's not out this week, it'll be out next week for sure. And then the Call of Duty 2 Big Red One video shouldn't take too long after that, because it's such a simple list. And then the Fairly OddParents video I don't think will take super long either, but the Barnyard video might take a while if I decide to incorporate the other list into it. So we'll see about all of that. But then otherwise, it's just going to start working on the Dead Rising 2 Off the Record video, and the Bluey Failed Speedrun can do both of those, as well as the Black Ops 6 as banning challenge. Maybe just knock that out real quick, because those are usually a little bit easier to put together. Those don't take an insane amount of time. So yeah, I got lots and lots of videos to work on. Got to start working on editing the vlogs as well. So gonna be quite busy here, but it's all worth it. Hopefully the grind pays off. Hopefully the retro achievement stuff really pays off. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll be back on playing something later on in this week, whether that's PS5 or retro achievements, probably PS5. I'll see you guys then.